Hey, and welcome back to another video. Okay, in this video, we are going to talk about the chapter 1 of the richest man in Babylon. That is, this book is about the financial, and first chapter is an historical sketch of Babylon. So I hope all you guys are happy and good. So don't waste time. Let's start. In the pages of history, there lives no city more glamorous than Babylon. Its very name conjures visions of wealth and splendor. Its treasure of gold and jewels were fabulous. One naturally pictures such a wealthy city as located in a suitable setting of tropical luxury, surrounded by rich natural resources of forests and mines. Such was not the case. It was located beside the Euphrates River in a flat, a reed valley. It had no forest, no mines, not even stone for building. It was not even located upon a natural trade route. The rainfall was insufficient to raise crops. Babylon is an outstanding example of man's ability to achieve great objectives using whatever means are at his disposal. All of the resources supporting this large city were man developed. All of its riches were man made. Babylon possessed just two natural resources, a fertile soil and water in the river. With one of the greatest engineering accomplishments of this or any other day, Babylonian engineers devoted the waters from the river by name, the means of dams and immense irrigation canals far out across that a reed valley went. These canals to pour the life-giving water covers the fertile soil. This ranks among the first engineering feats known to history. Such abundant crops as were the reward of this irrigation system the world had never seen before. Fortunately, during its long existence, Babylon was ruled by successive lines of kings to whom conquest and plunder were but incidental, while it engaged in many wars. Most of these were local or defensive against ambitious conquerors from other countries who coveted the fabulous treasures of Babylon. The outstanding rulers of Babylon live in history because of their wisdom, enterprise, and justice. Babylon produced no strutting monarchs who sought to conquer the known world that all nations might pay homage to their egotism. As a city, Babylon exists no more when those energizing human forces that built and maintained the city for thousands of years were withdrawn. It soon became a deserted ruin. The site of the city is in Asia, about 600 miles east of the Suez Canal, just north of the Persian Gulf. The latitude is about 30 degrees above the equator, practically the same as that of Yuma, Arizona. It possessed a climate similar to that of this American city, hot and dry. Today, this valley of Euphrates, once a populous irrigated farming district, is again a wind-swept reed west. Scant grass and desert shrubs strive for existence against the wind-blown suns gone where the fertile fields, the mammoth cities, and the long caravans of the rich merchandise. Nomadic bands of Arabs securing a scant living by tending small herds are the only inhabitants, such it has been since about the beginning of the Christian era. Dotting this valley are earthen hills. For centuries, they were considered by travelers to be nothing else. The attention of archaeologists were finally attracted to them because of broken pieces of pottery and brick washed down by the occasional rainstorms. Expeditions financed by European and American museums were sent here to excavate and see what could be found. Peak shovels soon proved these hills to be an ancient city graves. They might well be called. Babylon was one of these, over it for something like 20 centuries. The winds had scattered the desert dust, built originally of brick, all exposed walls, and had disintegrated and gone back to earth once more. Such is Babylon, the wealthy city, today a heap of dirt, so long abandoned that no living person even knew its name until it was discovered by carefully removing the refuse of centuries from the streets and the fallen wreckage of its noble temples and the palaces. Many scientists consider the civilization of Babylon and other cities in this valley to the oldest of which there is a definite record. Positive dates have been proved reaching back 8 8,000 years. An interesting fact in this connection is the means used to determine these dates uncovered in the ruins of Babylon, where were descriptions of an eclipse of the sun. Modern astronomers readily computed the time when such an eclipse visible in Babylon occurred, and thus established a known relationship between their calendar and our own. In this way, we have proved that 8,000 years ago, the Sumerites who inhabited Babylonia were living in walled cities. One can only conjecture for how many centuries previous such cities had existed. Their inhabitants were not mere barbarians living within protecting walls. They were uneducated and enlightened people so far as written history goes. They were first engineers, the first astronomer, the first mathematicians, the first financiers, and the first people to have a written language. Mention has already been made the irrigation system which transformed the arid valley into a agricultural cultural paradise. The remains of these canals can still be traced, although they are mostly filled with accumulated sand. Some of them were of such size that when empty of water, a dozen horses could be ridden abreast along their bottoms. In size, they compare favorably with the largest canal in the Colorado and Utah. In addition to irrigating the valley lands, Babylonian engineers completed another project of similar magnitude by means of an elaborate drainage system. They reclaimed an immense area of swamp land at the mouths of the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers, and put this also under cultivation. Herodotus, the Greek traveler and historians, visited Babylon while it was in its prime and has given us the only known description by an outsider. His writings give a graphic description of the city and some of the unusual customs of its people. He mentions the remarkable fertility of the soil and the bountiful harvest of wheat, barley, which they produced. The glory of Babylon has faded, but its wisdom has been preserved for us. For this, we are indebted to their form of records in that distant day. The use of paper had not been invented. Instead, they laboriously engraved their writing upon tablets of moist clay. When completed, These were baked and become hard till in size were about 6 by 8 inches and an inch in thickness. These clay tablets, as they are commonly called, were used as much we use modern forms of writing upon them of royal decrees, the laws of the land, titles to property, uh, promissory notes, and even letters which were dispatched by messengers to distant cities. From these clay tablets, we are permitted an insight into the intimate personal affairs of the people. For example, one tablet, evidently from the records of a country storekeeper, relates that upon the given date a certain named customer brought in a cow and exchanged it for 7 sacks of wheat, three being delivered at the time and other for a wait the customer's pleasure, safely buried in the wrecked cities. Archaeologists have recovered entire libraries of these tablets, hundreds of thousands of them. One of the outstanding wonders of Babylon was the immense walls surrounding the city. The ancient ranked them with the Great Pyramid of Egypt by belonging to the even wonders of the world. Queen Semiramis is credited with having erected the first walls during the early history of the city. Modern excavators have been unable to find any trace of the original walls, nor is their exact height known. From mention on the uh, made by early writers, it is estimated they were about 50 to 60 feet high, faced on the outer side with burnt brick and further protected by a deep moat of water. The latter and the more famous walls were started about 600 years before the time of Christ by King Nabopolassar. Over such a gigantic scale did he plan the rebuilding. He did not live to see the work finished. This was left to his son Nibon Nebuchadnezzar, whose name is familiar by way of biblical history. The height and the length of these later walls, as treasures believe, they are reported upon reliable authority to have been about 160 feet high, the equivalent of the height of a modern 15-story office building. The total length is estimated as between 9 and 11 miles. So wide was the top that a 6-horse chariot could be driven around them. Of this tremendous structure, little now remains except portions of the foundations and the moat. In addition to the ravage, the elements, the Arabs completed the destruction by quarrying the brick for building purpose elsewhere. Against the walls of Babylon marched In turn, the victorious armies of almost every conqueror of the of that age of wars of conquest, a host of kings laid siege to Babylon, but always in vain. Invading armies of that day were not to be considered lightly. Historians speak of such units as 10,000 horsemen, 25,000 chariots, and 1,200 regiments of foot soldiers, with 1,000 men to the regiment. Often 2 or 3 years of preparation would be required to assemble war materials and depots the food along the proposed line of march. The city of Babylon was organized most like a modern city. There were streets and shops. Peddlers offered their wares through residential districts. Priests officiated in magnificent temples. Within the city was an inner enclosure for the royal palaces. The walls about this were said to have been higher than those about the city. The Babylonians were skilled in the arts. These included sculpture, painting, weaving, goldworking, and manufacture of metal weapons and agricultural implements. Their jewelers created most artistic jewelry. Many samples have been recovered from the graves of its wealthy citizens and are now on exhibition in the leading museums in the world. At every early period, when the rest of the world was still hacking at trees with stone-headed axes, or hunting and fighting with flint pointed spears and arrows, the Babylonians were using axes, spears, and arrows with metal heads. The Babylonians were clever financiers and traders, so far as we know, they were the original inventors of money as a means of exchange and promissory notes and written titles to property. Babylon was never entered by hostile armies until about 540 years before the birth of Christ. Even then, the walls were not captured. The story of the fall of Babylon is most unusual, curious. One of the great conquerors of that period intended to attack the city and hoped to take its impregnable walls. Advisors of Nabonidus, the king of Babylon, persuaded him to go forth to meet Cyrus and Cyrus and give him battle without waiting for the city to be besieged. In the succeeding defeat to the Babylonians' army, it fled away from the city. Cyrus, the, the, thereupon entered the open gates and took possession without resistance. Thereafter, the power and the prestige of the city gradually waned until, in the course of the few hundred years, it was eventually abandoned, deserted, left for the winds and storms to level once again to that desert earth from which its grandeur had originally been built. Babylon had fallen, never to rise again, but to its civilization obeys most. The cones of time have crumbled to dust the proud walls of its temples, but the wisdom of Babylon endures. Okay, this is all about the chapter number one of the richest man in Babylon book. This is the first day of this book, and this is first video. Okay, I hope you guys are enjoy, and if not enjoy, okay. I am trying to make videos like in different fields, such a way you can be engaged in more. Okay, so thank you for being with me, and thank you. I'll see you next video with another chapter.